it is by bringing in a more educated and appropriate workforce. It is bringing in the women's, so that we can have more of a balanced workforce, so that we can do a better job with our collective thinking and not be so blindsided and one-dimensional with our thinking.
Hello world, this is BetterTech, a podcast where we chat with some of the most successful leaders about the latest industry developments. So join us as we explore the world reliant on tech. This episode is brought to you by Techcell, a leading software development company. Check them out at techcell.com. We are joined today by Jane Frankland, CEO of Cybersecurity Capital and an advocate of women in tech. Welcome, Jane. It's a pleasure to have you on our channel. And before we get into the latest cybersecurity trends, its changing landscape, and the role of women in tech, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Frankland. I'm an award-winning cybersecurity entrepreneur, a best-selling author and speaker and change activist. Sometimes I say I'm a change agent, but I've worked in cybersecurity for over 22 years. I've built my own global hacking firm. I've directed some of the world's best-known consultancies and worked to help accreditation companies and forums like Crest and Cyber Essentials and OWASP throughout my career. I am a board advisor and a judge for about 7 awards globally right now. And I'm featured in the media quite a lot as well. So I'm considered one of the top influencers in cybersecurity and one of the top influencers in technology in the UK. And I have a company which is called Cybersecurity Capital. And what we believe is that a failure to attract and retain women in cybersecurity is making us all less safe. And that only by getting a greater number of women into the industry and remaining in it, will we have better happiness, better security solutions, and better innovation. So we do trainings, and we do mostly with leaders or with women. And we have a platform that's coming out this year, which is purely for women to help them become stronger and more resilient and impactful. And that will have meetups and masterclasses and a facility for women to find mentors. So that's kind of who I am and what I do.
Thank you for acquainting us all, Jane. So you've been in the cybersecurity industry for over 22 years now. How do you think the industry has evolved over time? What changes do you see? And what recent developments do you find worrisome?
Yeah, well, when I first came into it in 1997, it really was, it was a technical domain, so it was technical. There wasn't that as much technology as there is now, and therefore there weren't as many solutions, and there weren't as big an attack surface. Right now, everything has just grown exponentially. So we have more connectivity, more data, we have more legislation to take care of, and really what I've seen is kind of a move, into a move really, in addition to the technology aspect, into more of the human aspect. So that kind of behavior scientist kind of approach, where we're bringing in sociologists and, those who understand psychology, so that we understand the behavior of people within our organizations who might pose a threat to us, or external hackers or criminals that are or spies that are wanting to come in and take from us, or simply spy on us, wait until they're ready to do something malicious or to steal.
And you recently wrote a book on how the failure to attract women in cybersecurity is making us all less safe. I think we're all interested to know more about the importance of having gender diversity in tech. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, the book kind of happened as a bit of an accident. So I just wrote a blog about what I was seeing in the industry. So this was in 2015, and I thought I was going to get crucified for what I wrote. But I thought, it's my view. No one could take that away from me. And it just went wild. So in a very positive way. So I kind of wrote report, and that was 15,000 words. And then I thought, well, actually, if I gather interviews from women, then I can do a better job and be more helpful. So maybe I should turn it into a book. And so that's kind of how the book came about. So the book also came about from a Kickstarter project, so I wasn't going to put my time into something if it wasn't wanted. So I got it backed and invested in financially before I wrote it. And really what the book was a research project. I didn't know it at the time because I thought it wouldn't take long to write, but it really involved me interviewing and speaking to thousands and thousands of women and also men about what's going on and what the situation is like, and doing a lot of research into what's going on in our industry and not going on in our industry and needs to go on in our industry, and what's going on in other industries, so what we can learn from them. So it took much longer. It was a real journey. It was my first book, so I had all of the fears around putting myself, I'd already put myself out there. I was already a writer, a blogger, and also a vlogger as well. So I was quite used to that, but there was something kind of special about putting a book out, and especially on that topic and in our industry, which can be quite ruthless and unforgiving. So really with the book, the kind of premise that I came from, and also the conclusion as well, which is a good thing, is that women are different to men. We all know that biologically we're different, but women are different to men, and we know that women in business, in any business, are good for business. So they are much more profitable. They stay on track when it comes to budgets, much more than teams that aren't more balanced, and there's more diversity. So there's more sharing that goes on. There's more profits. There's more production and efficiencies. So all that happens when you have women in any business, particularly in leadership. And what you also get is when you have women that come into groups, the collective intelligence of a group increases the higher the number of women there are in the group. So it doesn't mean to say that if it was an all-women group, it would be super intelligent. It just means that when there is that gender diversity in the group, the output is far better. The collective intelligence increases. But when we look at security is all about making better decisions around risk. And women are different to men. And how this kind of shows up is that women see risk in a different way to men. And there have been hundreds and hundreds of studies that illustrate this, and they're all referenced in my book. And that's good for us because that's what we need. So we're in the business of risk, of making decisions around risk. And if women see it in a different way, an accurate way, because we're quite risk averse, when we come together with men who can be go in the other direction, more happy with risk and tolerate a higher level of risk. So they're on the top end, we're on the lower end. When we come together, we get a much better and balanced view, a more accurate view of what true risk is. And women are also really embracing of regulations and controls. And so they don't naturally look to technology to fix a solution. What we tend to do is look at the full picture rather than jump straight to a tech solution, which in my view is, has been happening, and one of the reasons why we have so many issues. And the other thing is that women are socially and emotionally, they score higher when it comes to social and emotional intelligence. And, when we look at that and then we look at how they respond during times of turbulence, so crises and things like that, again, women traditionally respond better to those kind of turbulent times. So we're dealing with breaches. So when a breach happens, we have a natural tendency to remain calm when that occurs. So I don't say that women are better than men at all, because that's not the case. Men certainly aren't better than women. But when we come together, then we can just do a better job and we evolve. So that's what the book really is about. And then looking at the changes that we need to make and the inherent mistakes that we are making right now, not necessarily deliberately, unintentionally, but that we need to make in order to get more women in and remain in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. We could use more diversity in the realm of tech. Then coming specifically to the cybersecurity space, what trends do you see taking place in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, attacks are going to grow exponentially. They're already, we're already experiencing that now. We've got more AI, more machine learning, more connectivity. We've got the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything. We've got new privacy laws. We have so much coming at us. It's causing us so many problems. So one, we've got to keep up with these technologies. So what I'm finding with leaders is they're struggling to know which ones to buy. So that's causing them confusion, and a confused buyer doesn't always buy. So we've got that going on. We've also got an issue with our workforce. So the media will report that we have a talent crisis, a shortfall. And there's a bit of scaremongering going on with that. We do have a shortfall in some areas, but really what needs to happen is we need better data to actually work upon. So we need to do research and find out, well, what exactly is going on? What are the skills that we're lacking in? Which countries we're lacking in? Because it's not the same across the world. And then how can we go and fix that solution? So, yeah, exactly. So often we hear that there is, say, for instance, when it comes to women, we need more women in the industry and things like that. Well, I always encourage the media and people who say that to be more accurate, because say when we look at India, for instance, India has a great number of women that come into the industry at a young age. In schools they're coding, and that's normal. It's with a country that's built on technology. I think 40% of the industry is built on technology. So that's a real skill that already exists. So it's not necessarily a problem for India. So we need to get much more accurate when we report upon these things, so that there is a skill shortage in some areas. But what we also need to be doing is we need to be investing. And what we're expecting is a ready-made workforce. And also we're out there kind of looking for unicorns. We're not being realistic. We're not approaching the hiring, aspect in a good way, and that's causing us the main issues. I think we're doing a much better job on awareness, in our outreach and going out to schools and colleges and just the world, the media, and actually letting them know what it is and how our industry has evolved and how very diverse it is, and that it's not just technology, that there's a lot of business and management and kind of language skills that are really needed for our ecosystem. I think we're doing a much better job of that. But when people show an interest, whether they're male or female, what I'm noticing is that there's a real problem with the hiring, and then also sometimes the onboarding. So it's just like setting them up for success. So sometimes it's a case of they come in and they don't necessarily have all of the skills that they need, and they're just being left to struggle. And there's one thing kind of empowering yourself and going out there and being a self-starter and learner, but there's another thing having your company invest in you too, to kind of help bridge that gap so that you remain with them and loyal to them and you develop with them. So, I see those types of problems, going on. The awareness, for instance, the insider threat, the human aspect has always been around. Social engineering has been around for a long time. Humans invariably make mistakes. Humans don't always know that they are making a mistake. That's always been around. But just the scale of it, I think, because the attacks have increased, and some of these attacks are more sophisticated and creative, but some of them aren't. They are well known about and they are bog standard. So that whole side of things has really exploded.
And speaking of what we should be doing, cyberattacks have also considerably evolved. How do you think the new developments in cybersecurity can help combat this?
Well, the only way is really through education. So as I said, a few minutes ago, really it is by bringing in a more educated and appropriate workforce. It is bringing in the women's, so that we can have more of a balanced workforce, so that we can do a better job with our collective thinking and not be so blindsided and one-dimensional with our thinking. So if we bring in the appropriate skills and we develop them and invest in them, then that will help us to really cope with the change that is coming at us, and be more innovative and advanced with it. But we do need to create these cultures whereby I talk about high challenge and high support cultures, whereby the people coming in are stretched and they are developed and they are encouraged to not encouraged to make mistakes. They're supported when they do make mistakes. So we're creating these psychologically safe environments that help them to progress and learn, so that they can be loyal and stay with us and evolve and develop. And this also really helps us with the attacks that are coming at us, whether they are kind of spawned from AI or whether they're not, they're manual, combination of manual and automated or technology or AI. Things like that can really help us, because when we have that, they won't be afraid to make mistakes and they will evolve and learn and be comfortable with it. And I think one of a good example of that was with Marisk, when they had, their severe incident a few years ago in 2017, the CISO there said, do what's right, for the customer. So that was empowering them and allowing them to do what they knew to be right, rather than to kind of be frozen in the headlights, and to worry, am I doing the right thing? Well, what if? Because sometimes there can be in security, we have a lot of scapegoating and we have a lot of blame mongering and we have a lot of victimization that invariably will go on. When you remove that and you allow people to do their job and to trust their knowledge and their instincts and their experience, then you get a better result. So it's this creating cultures like that is really important for our industry, and also creating leaders that can lead like that, because leadership is a skill that is learned and taught. Nobody really is born a leader. It's something that you're taught how to be, and you need to be refreshed how to be a good leader all the time, because invariably you'll get into mistakes. You'll make mistakes and bad behaviors.
And in your opinion, how can we equip the C-suite especially to be able to counter this threat landscape and be more open as leaders?
Yeah, well, they need to come to us, and we need to go to them. So they, I think, are interested. But I think when they are more accountable, so they take on the risk, so we're not taking on that risk, they are. So we can advise and be more consultative, and we can be operational in how we deal with that, but they have to own the risk. So really what I want to see is our security leaders, our CISOs and our CSOs and heads of really stepping up and actually becoming empowered and reaching out to them, not to put upon them and not to police, but actually to go out and to want to find out about them. So if they can see the world through their eyes and they can learn about what's going on in their environment, then invariably they will be interested to learn about us. And that forms a trust and a connection so that we can find solutions whereby we can both win and then the company wins, because we're all there to support the company. But we have to, I really do believe this with the leadership. We've got really weak leadership, and we can step up and change that ourselves. Just the other day I was talking to a CISO, and what she was saying that she's in an organization and it's not great, and she's being hampered by her CIO, and and she speaks to the board regularly, highly competent, highly experienced, but she's literally gone into the CEO and said, if he's causing me a problem, he's restricting what I'm being able to do. If I can't do this, you're basically in trouble. And I'm also not happy with this because I took this job based on a whole lot of promises that you said. I have my reputation to think of. And if you don't change it, I will literally walk away. And when I walk away, I'll bring my team with me, or they will follow me. So it's really kind of, that's quite an in-your-face approach. Yeah. And it's a very bold approach. But actually, she's quite right, because, we've got to change this scape-mongering that's going on. And we have to, the only way that we can do that is by being bold, with our actions. So I actually quite enjoyed hearing her story and hearing her in no uncertain terms saying, you're causing me a problem, you're causing a risk for the company, it's under your leadership, this needs to happen, you've just appointed the Premier League team and we're dealing with the D team here, so go and sort it out, otherwise, the Premier team, which is her and her team, will literally walk, and they can be picked up by numerous organizations who are crying out for them, or go and start their own thing. So it's really kind of being very empowered and owning it and saying, you need to change, this is a problem, and getting your voice heard. Because what tends to happen is our voices as leaders aren't heard, or our reports don't get seen, or someone else presents, or whatever. And when we need to make the changes, because it's not that we don't know what to do, we do know what to do. We're just not being able to do it. So that message really needs to get through. So it is a combination of us stepping up as leaders and also but approaching that in the right manner from an open mind, from an inquisitive mind, from a beginner's mind. Help me understand what you do. I'm interested in you and your mission, as opposed to you're doing it all wrong. You're being a pain in the backside. I can't do my project. Da 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 da. It really has to be, approached like that. And then the other way, let's look at what you're doing. And there's a part that the board and the non-executive directors can play too, because I really feel strongly that the non-executive directors, they do hold the board accountable. That's their job, one of their jobs, and because the board isn't necessarily up to speed. Some boards are, but it's not particularly common. If they're not up to speed, then they need help with that. If the non-execs get up to speed, then the board will listen to the non-execs and they will be coached by the non-execs. So for me, I kind of think that there needs to be this little triangle or circle, even better still circle, that goes on where the executives are moving through it, coaching and mentoring and advising one another, so that the intelligence actually increases and understanding increases.
Definitely, the importance of coaching and mentoring should never be underestimated. So that wraps up today's episode, and thank you once again, Jane, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode by BetterTech. If you enjoyed this podcast, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share it across your favorite social networking platform. We look forward to bringing you the latest industry news in our next episode. In the meantime, take a look at our other episodes and hit subscribe with the links in the description box below so that you don't miss out on the latest in tech.